Well, once again, it's been a busy week here in the nation's capital. And for those of you who are regular viewers and listeners on Washington Watch, you know that we always love to conclude the week and the program on Fridays with reviewing the most important and significant stories of the week, but to do so through the lens of Scripture. So joining me now for our weekly Biblical Worldview segment is Dr. David Closson. He, of course, is the director of the Center for Biblical Worldview here at FRC, and I'm really grateful that he's able today to be joining me in studio. So, David, happy Friday. Thanks for joining us here in studio. What an honor to have you.
Happy Friday. Great to be with you, Jody.
Yeah, always good. Usually you're out and about all over the place. So, and speaking out and about, last week, David, and I'd like to begin here if we can, but last week we concluded the program, kind of ran out of time, but you are involved in the Biblical Worldview workshops that are literally taking place all over the country. And I understand, in fact, after the program here, you got to head to the airport for yet another one. If you can take a moment, share with us a little bit about those.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about 3 years ago within the Center for Biblical Worldview that we started doing these one-day worldview workshops. So it's our colleague Joseph Backholm and myself, and we've done close to 15 or 16 of these one-day worldview workshops. We've done 4 of them in Alaska, 3 in California, really from coast to coast. And what they look like, Jody, is one day, 8 sessions. And so kind of we walk through what's the lay of the land when it comes to worldview in the American church as well as in the broader culture. Then we also kind of give some talks on the life issue. How do we preach and teach a pro-life ethic? What about critical race theory and even behind that critical theory? What about homosexuality and marriage, transgenderism? So kind of all the hot button issues, how do we think about them not just as political or cultural issues, but as biblical issues, as theological issues. And we really invite people to come who have preaching, teaching, and discipleship opportunities. So these are for pastors, these are for Sunday school teachers, but as well as just faithful Christian parents and grandparents who have those discipleship opportunities in their own families. And so we've been doing them all over the country. Right after this, I'm going to head to the airport. We're doing one in North Indiana. So
Wow.
Looking forward to being there with about 200 brothers.
That'll be tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yep, Saturday. And we're really looking forward to it.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, I tell you, David, I have, of course, having been a pastor and then being in Congress and having the opportunity to speak to a lot of pastors and churches and so forth, the need for these workshops is huge right now. There are so many churches and pastors, and we've had George Barna with all the stats with it, who even the pastors themselves, many of them don't share a biblical worldview, and that impacts our culture tremendously. So how can people reach out, maybe viewers, listeners, people would like to get information to their pastor or whatever? Where do they go to maybe book one of these things?
Yeah, so if you're a pastor or someone who's a leader in your church, just go to frc.org/worldview. And about halfway down the page, there's an interest form that you fill out, give us some information, and then someone on the FRC team will reach out to you, and we'll talk about whether it would kind of be a good fit for us to do one of these workshops in your community. So again, frc.org /worldview.
That's excellent. Well, I certainly encourage our viewers and listeners to do that. Okay, let's transition, David, a little bit on the news side of things. There's been a lot happen this week. Seems like we're living in a period of time where there's always a lot taking place, but there was a couple of bombshell news items this week on the whole transgender deal. We've got a young lady who's been awarded $2 million in malpractice. I just think, I know Tony has dealt with this earlier in the week and so forth, but let me toss that to you and get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, Jody, this is precedent setting. This is a bombshell, like you said. This is the first medical malpractice kind of outcome related to a detransitioner. So I'm sure that might be a newer term for some of our listeners, but someone who identified as transgender who is then kind of detransitioned back to identifying with their biological sex. So 2019 is where this story begins. You have a 16-year-old girl who was identifying as a biological boy, and her doctors told her and her family that if she did not go through with some of these surgeries, including a double mastectomy at age 16,
wow.
And her mother actually testified to this during the trial. She was told, the mother said, I was against this, but I was told that if we didn't move forward with this surgery as a family, that the likelihood that my daughter would commit suicide would exponentially increase. So she felt very kind of coerced and pressured into this. And so she, at 16, got the double mastectomy. She's 22 years old now. She's, again, detransitioned to identifying as into her God-given sex as a beautiful young lady, and went after the doctors in this lawsuit, who she says
they were psychologists too.
The psychologist and the doctor saying that they rushed her, and the jury agreed that they did not follow the necessary standards of care in this situation.
Now, when you say this is precedent setting, I mean, I have all sorts of things running through my mind of how this could be precedent setting. So I'd like to go down that path and see the ripple effect that this potentially could have. But before we get there, are you aware of any other cases right now where this potential malpractice situation is marching in those cases?
Jody, there's several. Probably the most high profile would be Chloe Cole.
Right.
She's a detransitioner from California. As a teenager, again, her doctors put her on a whole regimen of cross-sex hormones, puberty blockers, and then again, as a teenager, she had a double mastectomy. And again, since then, she has detransitioned to identifying as the beautiful young lady that she is, and is also now suing the doctors who forced, in her view, these kind of interventions on her. And so again, my hope is this first verdict, it came out of this, New York, is going to kind of provide a roadmap for the hundreds, probably now thousands of detransitioners who are now kind of trying to put the pieces of their life back together. And I think this is so important. We've talked about this, Jody, but it's about 90% of those who identify as transgender kind of in their adolescent years, that they grow out of it, that they, after a couple of years, begin to identify with their biological sex. And so again, what this is causing us to really think about is that a lot of these doctors, physicians, psychologists have been forcing these interventions, some of which are irreversible. Some of these hormone treatments cause their chemical castration. Some of these young ladies are never going to be able to carry their own children. And so I think this moment now, Jody, is forcing us to kind of grapple with the last 10 years. I think it was Dr. Oz, actually, a couple days ago. He said future medical textbooks are going to look back on the last 10 years or so with these gender transition interventions on minor children like we do, the way we look now on lobotomies that were practiced in the 1940s and 50s. And I agree with him. I think that's absolutely true.
Right. Well, I'm so glad to hear this with Chloe. I know when I was in Congress serving on the Oversight Committee, one of those hearings that was so memorable to me was when she testified. It was one of the hardest hearings to be a part of, and to see her emotions and what she went through. So I'm really thrilled she's going down this path, and I know you and I and others will be keeping a pulse on that. Let's go down this path, David, of the rippling effect of this. I think this is the beginning of perhaps a turning point in this whole battle. As I understand it, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons has now, among others, come out saying we don't need to do these surgeries, or what is it that they're saying, and is this the beginning of a lot more to come?
Well, I think the floodgates are probably opening, Jody.
Yeah.
This decision handed down in New York was a week ago today, so it's just been 7 days. Not surprising that 2 business days later, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons announced, I believe it was either Monday night or Tuesday morning, that they no longer recommend to the 11,000 members that are a part of the society that any sort of gender transition kind of procedures should be allowed to be performed on minors. You should at least wait till you're 19 years of age, is what they're saying now. What's interesting, you mentioned the phrase the rippling effects. The American Medical Association, so the AMA, in a National Review article back on Wednesday, they were asked, are you in line with the plastic surgeons? They didn't fully come on board, but they did say, we also agree that this is problematic and deserves a great deal of attention whether or not minor children are going to be allowed to pursue some of these irreversible surgeries. They should at least be generally deferred to adulthood, is what the AMA, the way they put it. And so again, the plastic surgeons, as far as a major medical association, this is the first one in the entire country that has backtracked on previous support for these procedures. And I think they were the first in 2024, Jody, to kind of begin to waffle a little bit. I think it was just 2 years ago, it was the Plastic Surgeon Association that said, well, we admit that there's considerable uncertainty about the surgeries. And now, 2 years later, here in the beginning of 2026, they are now advising their surgeons not to go down this road with minor children. Again, not coincidentally, in my view, just a couple of days after this first settlement to this the lady who had the double mastectomy.
Yeah, it's no coincidence at all. I mean, we recognize, we all see that for what it is. And as you mentioned, thousands of people are involved in it. Who knows where this is going to go? And I would imagine next is going to be some of these children's hospitals that have been continuing to do this type of thing. They're probably in the hot seat too, and I would anticipate the rippling effect is going to impact them as well. All right, David, from a biblical worldview perspective, let's talk about this quickly. From how do Christians need to be thinking about this? What does the Bible have to say on this issue?
Yeah. I think my big takeaway as Christians, we're looking at these stories. Children are image bearers, not experiments. When it comes to medicine, medicine exists to heal, not permanently alter bodies just in response to psychological distress. And again, I have met people who have struggled with sincere and intense gender dysphoria. But on this issue, we shouldn't, just because there's some mental and emotional distress, then alter our physical bodies. Christian worldview says that we are made male and female in God's image, that our sex is a God-given reality. So the Christian worldview embraces it, that you are male or female. And again, I think this is a good example, Jody, of just the last couple of months and last couple of years where reality, biblical reality, is beginning to reassert itself. And again, this is something we should all be thankful for. In my view, it shouldn't have taken this long, but reality is reasserting itself, and we are grateful for that.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it looks like that. It looked to me, David, like even just a couple of years ago, it looked like this new transitioning movement was going to take over.
Yes.
And it has totally reversed itself. As you said, it appears now that the entire country is coming back to realize not only common sense, but they're landing on the biblical understanding of male and female. Is that what we're seeing?
I think so. So, Jody, again, you and I have been tracking politics for a while. It was a decade ago, 2016, when North Carolina put out their bathroom bill.
Right.
And you would have it would have seemed like they had just passed the most egregious legislation ever. You had the MLB moving their All-Star game, professional sports teams saying they weren't going to come, their concert venues bands weren't coming just because of a bathroom bill. Again, that was only 10 years ago, and it did seem that the transgender revolution, this Bruce Jenner comes out in May of that year and does his, starts identifying as Caitlyn Jenner. It seemed like it was inevitable. It seemed like it was ascendant, it was unstoppable, and it turns out, again, reality has a way of asserting itself, and I think the transgender movement, the idea was it was going to be as inevitable as same-sex marriage.
Right.
Well, we've talked about this. I think most Americans, even those who maybe don't share our views on some of these other issues, the coercion of speech with pronouns, the biological males having to compete against biological women, the surgeries we're talking about, even liberal parents in New York City, I think, realize I don't really want my fourth grader in a locker room with a high school boy. And so I think there is a kind of the fever has broken. There's a return to sanity, and we as Christians with a biblical worldview need to continue to assert why that is the case, why this is good.
Absolutely. And we're all so thankful that we're seeing a reversal. David, less than 2 minutes here, but there was a religious freedom forum that's actually FRC sponsored and was a part of the International Religious Freedom Summit. And you got to speak with some of the folks there. Real quickly, again, we've just got a little over a minute. Give us the rundown on that and how we need to be viewing the issue of religious liberty.
Yeah. Significant event. Religious freedom still seems to have some sort of kind of bipartisan support. Even Nancy Pelosi spoke at this event alongside conservative stalwarts like Mark Walker and Sam Brownback. I think it's important, as we're gathering with co-belligerents on the issue of international religious freedom, to realize religious freedom is at stake in our own country. And so, again, religious freedom, the freedom to believe what you want to in terms of doctrine, the freedom to order your lives according to your deepest beliefs, that's something we need to keep front and center in our national conversation.
Absolutely. And, and this goes to the founding principles of what we have in the First Amendment and so forth. And it's stunning to me just how much progress has been made on the left to rein in the religious liberty issues. And I think this is yet another one of those issues that needs to be front and center, both in the pulpits, the pastors across this country, as well as for that matter, I mean, not just Christians. Our country needs to be re-educated on our First Amendment. David Closson, as always, an honor to have you. I know you got to run to the airport. Safe travels. Hope you have a fantastic week there in Indiana.